Hello everyone, this is Beastly Eel here, and in today's video we're going to be talking about the season finale of Loki 2. So, first off, if you have not seen it yet, which most people should have already by now, um, I highly recommend you pausing this video and then watching the episode and then coming back. But if you don't care, or you've already seen it, welcome. So this episode starts right where the last one left off, which is Loki being able to control his time skipping and goes back in time to the point where he is able to, right before Victor Timely goes into the um, time stream to try to stop the destruction of the sacred timeline. Well, guess what? Loki had to do this a lot of times, right? So, one of the big things happens here is there's a lot of repetitive stuff. So this might seem like not a lot has happened in a short amount of time, but there is a lot that has happened. Meaning, um, when I tell you Loki goes back in time countless times, he actually spends centuries doing so, just so you're aware. So the whole thing is he starts to figure out how to try to get Victor Timely faster to the actual time stream to fix it. He then works with OB and Casey to then learn as much as he can about engineering. Now, while this is going on, to the other characters, it seems to be normal, meaning like this is just happening now, where for Loki, this is happening an infinite amount of times. And so he's predicting what they're all trying to say, and he's basically like, no, we got this. So we see Victor Timely lose a lot, die a lot, especially in the beginning. He then learns engineering from Obi and Casey, and then after centuries later um, of him trying, he then tries again and gets everything perfect and explaining in detail to Victor Timely exactly what he needs to do, when to do it, what not to do, or else the entire timeline will be destroyed. And Loki is very confident that he's got this fixed because he's got the time dilation down, he's got the expander on the device made, and everything. So Victor Timely makes it all the way over, shoots the device, right, and then makes it back inside of the TVA. They all get back upstairs and they realize something. They realize that it doesn't work. And Victor Timely is the first one to figure it out in the sense of he goes, it's not going to work because it overloaded again. And the reason for it is because the timelines are branching off at an infinite rate, which then means that the time rings, or the time weaver, I should say, and the rings around it need to expand infinitely, which is something that they are unable to actually master. Loki feels defeated and realizes he's going to have to go back further into time. Well, where does he go? Well, he goes back in time to get Victor Timely even earlier. Doesn't help. He then goes back in time to where he can stop He Who Remains from dying. And although we don't know how many times this has happened, all of a sudden He Who Remains pauses time completely and talks to Loki candidly, explaining him that he obviously knows what's going on to a certain degree. That you keep trying to change something that's not going to change, and you're not going to be able to stop it. And the only way to stop it is to kill Sylvie, and he doesn't want to do that. So there's a lot of him trying to stop Sylvie, and to the point basically of just being stabbed multiple times. So we just watch He Remains die constantly over and over and over again. And he's basically just asking He Who Remains, like, what's going on? Like, how does this even work? And he's like, it's not gonna. There's nothing you could do. You can spend an eternity doing this, and you're not gonna know. You're not gonna be able to fix it, and you're not gonna be able to change anything. And that's one of the big things I noticed in that sense, and is he did not. flinch at any of it. Meaning, he who remains was not surprised by any of it, um, and was basically explaining that he's just going to keep dying, and that all his variants are going to kill him. I mean, are going to come out. And Loki's like, no, there's got to be a way. There's got to be a way to save everyone and everything. And he remains is like, not going to happen. So he just sees the same thing happening over and over again. And that's when he goes forward in time to the point where we see at the end of the last episode, or right before the end of the last episode, where time starts to disintegrate. He talks to Sylvie, stops time completely, and talks with her and explains everything that's going on, what's happening, all the bad stuff, and what he needs to do. And she basically is like, so you're telling me the only thing you can do is kill me? And he goes, yeah. And she's like, what? You want my blessing? Because I'm not going to be giving it. You killing he who remains won't stop won't stop anything from happening, and maybe there's another way we could do it. And he's basically explained to her that it doesn't matter, there's nothing he can do. Well, something clicks in his head. I don't know what it is personally, but he goes back to where the timeline was about to explode, and he doesn't have Victor time to go. He walks out there himself. He walks into the time stream or time area, and the time radiation does not cause him any damage. But we see Loki transform into this new form. Now, it's very similar to his old form, really, but it's black robes, black horns, and he walks across. Uses his magic, and basically destroys the Time Weaver, and all the timelines exist. They look like they're dying. And so then Loki starts grabbing them one by one, and putting his energy into it, little by little. Once he grabs enough of them, a portal opens up to the area beyond time where he who remained lived, and that's when Loki goes through it with all of it, basically all the timelines being infused into him, walking up to what is now going to be his throne and sits down, and that's how his story ends. What we have is after the fact, the TVA still exists. They're trying to do well in certain areas. It's unclear exactly what they're planning on doing, but I guess they're trying to keep the peace is the big thing. Mobius and B-15 are talking, and Mobius wants out. He really wants to be done, and he decides that he's going to leave the TVA. And B-15 is like, you do what you need to do, but just know that you will always have a place here. And so he leaves. B-15 goes into the war room where all of the hunters are there to figure out what their next steps are now that the timelines are safe. I guess the idea is they're going to be hunting down all the variants of He Who Remains to stop them from, well, rising to power. So making sure that, like, Victor Timely doesn't exist and all the others, right? So then we have Mobius with watching his actual self in the timeline that he was supposed to exist in, with his sons playing with him. And he's sad, and Sylvie comes with him, or it comes in, and explains that it's so weird to not have Loki. And he agrees, and that they're going to have to figure out what to do now. And they don't know what they're going to do now. And then the where this ends is the weirdest part of all, right? So, what happens next is we see Renslayer in an area that looks very similar to the place where all of time doesn't exist, where Eliath is, right? And what we see in the background is a pyramid. And for those of you who don't know, we'll talk about that in a minute. We see that there is a symbol of a version of the TVA in the ground and a purple light going towards her. Now, normally you would assume that now granted it ends before we see anything else happen. So you would assume that it's going to be Eliath that's going to take all of her energy. But This could be Ramatot, and that is a variant of Kang who is now there, who now wants to rise to the power. So it'll be very interesting to see what happens next. Loki is now the god of stories, Loki, who is now in control of all the timelines to a certain degree. I think he's just keeping it alive for the most part so they can survive. So now he is a god of the time, or the stories, I guess you would say is better put. So overall, I mean, this season was incredible. A lot of so this is where it gets weird in the sense of like not a lot chronologically happened. Like it was a lot of the same stuff over and over again for a reason, and it worked for the storyline, and I very much enjoyed it. Um, but let me know what you guys thought about this season in the comments below. Did you like it? Did you not? And why? And as always, if you like the content you see, please like and subscribe below. Other than that, this is going to be Beastly Eel signing out. Have a great night.